Good evening to all our people around the world. This is the May 2017 No Crack Like Home update. We're Experis Ireland, we're part of the Manpower Group, and for the last couple of years we have been specifically recording webinars to Irish professionals, mainly in Australia and New Zealand, about the opportunities and how the market has improved back here in Ireland. I suppose over the last 3 to 6 months, we've had a number of people join our calls. So welcome from Canada, the UK, from the Middle East, and not only Irish professionals looking to move back home, but also international candidates who are looking to potentially call Ireland home themselves. So, just to give a sort of a view for people who haven't joined these calls before, it's a 15-20 minute sort of update, and we regularly give you obviously the latest sort of market news, what's going on over here in Ireland. We give you, as I say, a market update on the Irish jobs, the lifestyle, and then at the end of it, there's a sort of a Q&A session for any questions that people want to do. So please post those on the webinar. If not, you can always contact afterwards on the information supplied at the end of the deck. So, as I say, Ireland is the fastest growing economy in the European Union. Last year we grew by nearly 5% GDP. The European average is only just over 1.5%. Probably most importantly, especially for those looking at employment in Ireland, in less than 5 years, the unemployment has dropped from 14.5% down to 6.4%, which is one of now the lowest in Europe. Most modern economies, once you get to about 5% unemployment, you normally agree that that's about sort of total employment, because there's always people changing jobs, people migrating, immigrating, people going off and studying. So we're pretty much close to full employment in Ireland, which is a phenomenal achievement from the country, considering where we were less than 5 years ago. Very interestingly, not just the fact that there's sort of a population boom, but also the number of young professionals across the EU and wider afield that have come to Ireland, is that a third of our total population is under the age of 25. With obviously the challenges politically, the Irish population and country is very pro-Europe, has seen the massive benefits of being a member of the European Union, and obviously with the recent changes in the UK regarding the Brexit referendum, there is absolutely zero appetite for a similar referendum here in Ireland. So I suppose just to give you some context and some sort of data behind it and what has been sort of going on quite recently, one of the big four accountancy firms does issue a crane index, and this is based in Dublin, and last month we had 63 cranes building properties, either residential or commercial properties. In less than a month that's increased to 70. There's actually space, in the next 2 years there is going to be space for an extra 50,000 workers just in the business districts of Dublin City. One of the reasons why is obviously Brexit. There's a number of banks, financial institutions and corporate HQs that will need to move outside of London when the UK will leave the European Union. And I say it's not just sort of financial services companies. Anyone, the multinational company that is based in the UK that has European operations will legally have to move certain parts of their operation, including things like data centers, compliance checking, all of those that won't be relevant to be based in the UK will have to move to other countries. And I suppose Dublin and Ireland is competing with the likes of Brussels and Frankfurt and Amsterdam, Paris for a number of those businesses. There's been some, even today, JP Morgan have announced that they're going to be moving a significant number of jobs to their 3 locations outside of the UK, one of which is in Dublin. Barclays Bank is doing something similar. So as Brexit carries on, and we're now there's a 2-year countdown, there's going to be more and more companies announcing moving, and hopefully a significant number of those to Ireland. So net migration, a number of people on the call here obviously have left the country for lots of different reasons, but actually for the first time since 2009 we've had a net immigration into Ireland of just over 3,000. I suppose also people, not just obviously in Australia, where the sort of the visa changes in the 457 visa are going to be coming into play. So New Zealand looking to do the same. UK is going to have the same situation once they're outside the EU, where people will have to, if you're an EU national, you will have to get a visa in the next 2 years to be able to work in the UK. And obviously we know with Trump coming in, there is going to be some lot tighter squeeze on the visa process for the US. So now is the time for people starting to think about sort of moving home, maybe sort of plan the next sort of 12, 18 months to maybe to move back to Ireland, or as Ireland as your sort of first time you've come here to come and work. Since Brexit was announced, or the vote happened back in June 2016, there's been over 100,000 UK firms have registered in Ireland for a legal entity. That's a phenomenal number of companies. A significant number of them are from in Northern Ireland, with obviously the border, which is up for debate on how firm that is going to be. But I suppose that is a significant number. I'm going to say we have seen, as a global recruitment company, we've seen a significant uptick in the number of UK-based candidates, whether they are UK citizens, Irish citizens, EU citizens, applying for jobs here in Ireland. So I suppose one of the things that we sort of update on a sort of monthly basis here is obviously the impact of Brexit and obviously the fact obviously with Trump's election in the US. So the US are now proposing to change their corporate tax. That was a concern for a lot of the US multinationals and the employers based here in Ireland. But actually speaking to a number of the business leaders of these US companies, and say we work for a US company ourselves, the view here is that the majority of the functions that are operating by US companies based in Ireland are for their EMEA businesses. I mean, these are global companies and they do need to have a presence here in Europe. And one of the reasons obviously why they like Ireland is the fact obviously there is a lower corporation tax rate, but also the fact that it's English speaking and it is only sort of 5-hour time difference from the east coast of the US. In the last 12 months since Brexit vote happened, the exchange rate has moved nearly 20%. It has sort of stabilised roughly where it is, but it is still a lot more attractive for us buying goods in the UK. It's not very good for Irish exporters such as the sort of the food and agri-food sort of business that are trading with the UK. And the UK is still the largest importer of Irish goods. I think something like 60% of all meat or beef in McDonald's hamburgers is grown in Ireland. But I think the view, and nothing has changed, the multinationals are here to stay, and actually as we move on to the next slide, there will be some other companies we will announce that are increasing their headcount and new companies moving over. But I suppose what we want to sort of try and do is sort of compare, as I say, Dublin to a number of the cities, and I suppose a lot of you would know, especially those in Australia, about how expensive sort of Sydney is. I mean, London, as I say, I lived there for many years myself. It is significantly more expensive, and sort of New York, as you can see from sort of whether it's the gym membership or trip to a doctor or your monthly rent, Dublin is significantly cheaper for a lot of things that you would spend money on across the big cities around the world. It may be taking a little bit of poetic license to compare us with the London, Sydneys and New Yorks. However, Dublin is a capital city, and as I say, it is competing for jobs with these sort of cities there. So yeah, and as I say, the number of sort of senior executives that have moved to Dublin is increasing. So as I mentioned, there's a significant number of job announcements, and sort of every week there is a number of new announcements. As I say, Microsoft have announced 600 new jobs, a lot of sales jobs across sort of EMEA. Indeed, one of the big growing job boards, that's announced another 500 jobs, Accenture. And so it's not just sort of Dublin, we have Element 6 down in Clare, and NGEX in Cork have announced jobs there. And as I say, we've been told by the Irish Development Agency there's a lot more announcements to come, and every week there is an update, there is a sort of an announcement there. So I suppose it's just to sort of balance it, there obviously is some challenges. As I say, Ireland has only sort of recently come out of a pretty horrific sort of recession. But as with sort of small economies, they do move sort of quicker than the infrastructure can keep up with. And so there is a challenging housing crisis. We'll let you know a bit further down regarding how much sort of rents are. But I suppose just to put in context that at the sort of the top of the housing market in 2008, properties to buy around 30% cheaper than where they were in 2008. However, renting is at all-time highs. So there has been a big government program to invest in the properties. And I suppose the Craic index we showed you earlier is facilitating, obviously, the increase in infrastructure development. There's a new Lewis line going in, so that will be live. That will connect the two Lewises. As people know, the tram in Dublin city centre, they haven't been connected, but there's going in December, they will be connecting from north to south and east to west. Taxation, we've been hit with some pretty horrific taxation over a number of years. There is going to be a reduction at the end of this year, and there's going to be further reductions in taxation going forward. As private sector pay has increased, there is a lot of public sector demand to get the increase in pay for them. So there's a lot of sort of tough decisions that the government will have to make. But I suppose it's everyone's looking, I suppose, to get pay increases as opposed to sort of pay freezes. So there will be some opportunity. And I'd say in the private sector, they are significantly moving upwards. So I suppose we're a specialist IT, pharma, engineering, recruitment company, and I suppose hot jobs, we're always looking for a significant number of sort of developers. And a recent study by a specialist technology website has analysed that actually Ireland has the highest number of software developers per capita than anywhere else in the world. In Dublin city centre, I think we've got 9% of the population in software development. So it has been a real tech hub, and as I say, the opportunities in that space have been sort of significantly growing. On the and that isn't just Dublin; it's up and down the country, and even more so in the pharma and engineering space. As 19 of the top 20 life sciences companies are based here in Ireland, and they're anywhere from Mayo to Kerry to Cork to Waterford to Dublin to Kildare. So. And obviously these aren't just sort of manufacturing facilities, they do have HR, IT departments, sales departments, corporate HQs and EMEA centres there. So significant number of different skill sets and career opportunities will be there for people in a sort of all around the country. So I suppose enough about the sort of the work part of it, but I suppose Irish lifestyle, very important for people to sort of compare. As I say, want to give people some sort of some data around what it costs to get sort of a mobile phone per month, and it's around sort of a pay-as-you-go, about 30 euros a month. Broadband's about sort of 30 euros a month. There is some challenges outside of out in sort of the countryside getting the quality of broadband, but there is a national broadband program that is going on to increase the availability of 4G. Utility bills and shopping bills are there. I'm going to say it's about just over 250 euros a month for all your utilities, and a weekly shop for two is about 80 euros per month. Also as well, I suppose going out for cinema, I've been told in New Zealand or in Australia and New Zealand, it is very expensive to go to the cinema and a pizza. Well, you can go out to the cinema for about 20 euros and a pizza for two is about 20 euros as well. I suppose taxis, as I say, because the infrastructure probably isn't as good, with only sort of a couple of trains and Lewis lines in the city. Number of people do use sort of taxis. It is very reasonable if you're out in town or from night out, you want to go back to say Dundrum, which is about sort of 7 or 8 kilometres from the city centre. It's about 18, 20 euros for a one-way fare. So I suppose just to give an idea of some of the sort of the major organisations that are here in Ireland, obviously the IBMs, Microsoft, Dell, Paddy Power, which I think most people would know, is probably one of the most, up there with Ryanair, it's probably two of the most sort of famous Irish brands. Their figures came out today. They had a 100% increase in their bottom line profits. They really are the major betting company, and they recently did a merger with Betfair. So they are really sort of the global betting and online sort of trading organisation out there, and they have moved their corporate HQ to Clonskeagh. So it's a great Irish success story. And then we've got a number of the major, say 19 of the top 20 life science companies with Sanofi, MSD, Bristol Myers Squibb. As I say, some of those have small operations in Ireland, but they're, say, around the country: Sanofi in Waterford, MSD in Carlow, and Tipperary. So I suppose getting on to sort of what it costs you to rent. So we've compared a sort of a 2-bedroom sort of apartment or house. And I suppose when you look at it, as I say, Dundrum, which is a very nice place in South County Dublin, I mean, you're just under €2,000 per month. We've given the sort of sterling equivalent, and Aussie dollar, and US dollars. So it is a bit more sort of expensive. However, once you get out to different areas, whether it's Belfast or Galway or Cork, much more reasonable to rent in those places. And actually, there isn't much difference in the salaries. So people, whether you're a software engineer or you're a QC chemist, salaries would be very much similar whether they're in Dublin or Galway or Tipperary. However, as I say, the cost of living is much cheaper once you get outside of the major sort of city centres. And sort of finally, I know everyone sort of pretty much most people these days have got sort of Twitter on their smartphones. And we've given a list of a number of Twitter handles to follow. Always a quick, easy way, if you are looking to get back into sort of Irish life, or you're interested in looking at what's going on in sort of in Ireland. We've given a number there. The journal.ie is probably the biggest news media group in Ireland these days. It's just purely online. It's overtaken all of the newspapers there, so it's where most people get their news. Silicon Republic is a specific website dedicated to science and technology. Very good one, finding out about jobs. There's lots of examples of people who've either moved back home or have moved to Ireland as a new country to live in. Maybe sort of follow us on Experis Ireland. We're always sort of retweeting and posting relevant information about the jobs and lifestyle market here in Ireland. The Irish Development Agency, the IDA, they're always posting about sort of new jobs and opportunities here in Ireland. And don't forget our colleagues in Borderless Talent, Team Borderless. They're the ones who facilitate a lot of the moving of talent around the world. So as I say, if there's any questions, please post them through the online sort of portal, or if you want to come back to us in a future date, you can catch us on experis.ie or through the information that we'll share online. Thank you very much.